Hello, Owen. So this week for Reader's Workshop, the lessons that we're focusing on are really on helping us to read those tricky words in the story. And I've noticed that when you're reading, that's something that you do really easily. So I'm noticing when you're reading that you're not using a lot of strategies because you have such a large sight word vocabulary and you've really internalized a lot of those strategies and you're able to use them quickly and efficiently. So today or this week, I wanted you to try something different. First, I wanted to share with you some books on your level, some different chapter books that I love. And these are all books that I got from the library. So I was thinking if you have time this week or in the weeks coming up, that you could look for some of these similar types of books. They're series books, which means that there's lots of different titles. And there's lots of different books in this series that the author has written. So I'm going to share a couple with you, and then I'll share a new strategy that you can try when you're reading these chapter books. So two of the series that I love are written by Cynthia Rylant. And one of the series is a series about Mr. Putter. These books are all about Mr. Putter and his tabby cat. And this one is a baseball one, and it's called Drop the Ball. So if you go to the library, you can look for some books by Cynthia Rylant, and one of the chapter books you'll find are the Mr. Putter series. And maybe you've already read some of these before. Another series that I love is the Henry and Mudge series. And this is also written by that same author, Cynthia Rylant. She wrote these books. And Henry and Mudge love to get into fun adventures together. And there's lots of different stories that she's written about these characters. This one is called The Long Weekend. And it's all about how Henry and Mudge are feeling like there's nothing to do on a cold, snowy weekend, and how they use their imagination to have fun together. And the last series that I love is the Frog and Toad series. And you may have already read some of these books before too. So I thought this week that you could get some of these different chapter books, and maybe you have some of them at your house. And then I wanted to show you one of the things that you can do to help your comprehension when you're reading. So one of the things that I do is I make predictions as I'm reading each chapter. And I do that by pausing when I finish a chapter, and then I think about what's happening in the story, and I ask myself what might come next. And I make some predictions, and then as I'm reading, I can be thinking about, did my predictions come true? Were they similar to something that the author wrote? Or maybe my predictions were different. So I'm going to read the first chapter to you today of Mr. Putter and Tabby, Drop the Ball. And then we're going to practice talking about what happened in the first chapter, and we'll make some predictions about what might happen next. Mr. Putter and Tabby Drop the Ball. So you can see in our fiction book today, we have our table of contents. Chapter 1 is called Baseball. Chapter 2 is called The Team. Chapter 3 is called The Dandies. Chapter 4 is called Drop the Ball. And Chapter 5 is called What a Day. Let's look at the first chapter. Baseball. Mr. Putter and his fine cat Tabby loved to nap in the summertime. They loved napping in the garden. They loved napping on the porch. They loved napping in the car. It seems like we nap all the time, Mr. Putter said to Tabby one day. Tabby was old, and her frisky days were over. She loved napping. I think we need a sport, Mr. Putter, said Mr. Putter. Tabby opened one eye. I think we need baseball, said Mr. Putter. Tabby opened the other eye. I wonder where my old mitt is, said Mr. Putter. He headed to the basement. Tabby was wide awake now. Look at the picture. How do you think Tabby feels about this idea of playing baseball? So now we've finished the first chapter. So I want you to share with me, what was happening in the first chapter? What did Mr. Putter and Tabby do a lot of? Why do you think Mr. Putter said to Tabby, we need a sport? Yeah, perhaps he realized, right, they were doing a lot of napping and a lot of laying around, and he was thinking they needed to be more active. So can you make some predictions? We know that Mr. Potter and Tabby have now gone into the basement, and they're looking for some of his old baseball gear. What do you think is going to happen next in the following chapters? So, Owen, this week, if you go to the library or if you have some of these different series books at your house, I want you to try that strategy. After each chapter, I want you to pause and do a little summary. What that means is it means you talk a little bit about what happened in the first chapter. Sometimes we even look at the illustrations and we think about how the characters are feeling, like how we looked at Tabby and we thought about how she was feeling about the idea of baseball. And then, before you go on to the next chapter, pause and make some predictions. See if you can think about what might happen next in the story. And you might even search for this one at the library if you want to keep reading and find out what happened in Drop the Ball. Have fun trying this new strategy.